Rayman's had not one, but two cancelled TV shows with only one truly successful TV appearance.
Then why don't you say it to my face without cameras, you f***ing red f***?
By now, most Rayman fans probably know about Rayman the animated series, which aired in the 90s in the lead up to the highly anticipated Rayman 2. But alas, it was canned after just 4 episodes, never to be seen again. But what if I told you there was another animated Rayman TV show that got cancelled, never made it to air, it was really recent, and I think is a good thing that it got cancelled? Well, strap in, because here is the story, or lack thereof, of Rayman and the Moldies. The iconic character who spawned into action in 1999 had a bright future ahead, with a sequel entering development swiftly, before then changing gear to become one of the most revolutionary games of all time, serving as one of, if not the best case of a 2D franchise translating into 3D. Around this time, alongside Rayman the animated series, there were McDonald's tie-ins, constant records being held like best-selling PS1 game in Europe, and plenty of spin-offs and handhelds. Rayman Rush, Rayman M, Game Boy Color games, Game Boy Advance games, eventually Rayman 3, and then the Rabbids. Now, bringing the Rabbids into this video now might be a bit weird, but there's a very good reason for it later on, so bear with me. In 2006, we got Rayman Raving Rabbids, which kind of led to Rayman becoming a more obscure character as the new Rabbid mascots would steal the limelight. Following this, we wouldn't really hear much from Rayman until 2011 when Rayman Origins finally came out, and from there everything was looking bright. A mobile spin-off called Rayman Jungle Run came out, then a proper sequel in the form of Rayman Legends, followed by another mobile spin-off of this called Rayman Fiesta Run, and this is where things got messy again. As good as Legends was, and as fun as those mobile spin-offs were for what they aimed to achieve, Legends, to me at least, had the same effect the Rabbids did. Legends was so popular, so iconic, so easy to recognise, that Rayman kind of got stuck there. Come 2015, we all thought maybe a new game might come, and it did, except this time it was a mobile-only game. Again, with no proper console counterpart to go with it. Rayman Adventures. Now, I quite like this game, but it did feel like nothing more than another take on the Jungle Run and Fiesta Run formula, with the Legends art style. Eventually, Rayman Mini came out, with the Legends art style, mechanics, and same fundamentals as Adventures. None of these are bad games, but it was clear that the innovation and creativity woven into the Rayman series was brought to a grinding halt like it was 2006 when the Rabbids became the main focus. For all intents and purposes, what the Rabbids did to Rayman in 2006 is pretty much the same as what Legends did to Rayman in 2013. I mean, I can't blame Ubisoft, it was mega successful, it was a damn good game, and churning out mobile spin-offs using the same assets and mechanics and everything seemed like a no-brainer. After Rayman Mini released, there was very little news on the Rayman front. No new games, no DLCs for the existing games, no news of any kind. As it turns out, there was a reimagining of sorts being thrown around internally at Ubisoft around 2021, but we only just found that one out, and it got cancelled, so it is whatever. However, in 2019 it was announced by Ubisoft that they were working on TV and movie adaptations of some of their franchises, including none other than Rayman. A TV show about Rayman in 2019? It sounds too good to be true. 'Cause it was. Early concept art of this animated TV show was shown at an entertainment conference where a few images got leaked and we got some information on the show itself. Set to be a 52 episode animated show for children, this show was an interesting idea. Do you remember the mobile game Rayman Adventures that I mentioned earlier? Well, as part of that game, Rayman could rescue and collect these creatures called Incrediballs. They're balls, and they're incredible. You hear that, ladies? Well, funnily enough, these incredible bollocks were spotted in the concept art, and it became very clear that the show would be about Rayman and these creatures. Well, in 2022 it was officially revealed that the title of the show would be Rayman and the Moldies, with these Moldies being somewhat developed versions of the Incrediballs. Weird, right? Well, very shortly after that, in June 2023, a couple of animation directors confirmed the series was never actually greenlit and never entered production, meaning all of the stuff we saw was likely concept art from the prototyping stage. Put simply, this show is not going to happen, and it probably never was going to happen. Well, that was quick. It ended as quick as it began, but to be honest, I'm quite glad, because Rayman and the Moldies wouldn't have been good for Rayman, I don't think. Here's why. Rayman isn't a child-based brand, and this TV show Rayman and the Moldies was clearly meant for young children. I think it was targeted up to like 10 years old. You know, this isn't like a family-friendly TV show like Doctor Who, where yeah, you can sell merchandise to children and children can watch it, but 25-year-old nerds still collect Matt Smith bobbleheads. What I'm saying is that especially in 2019, where Rayman was probably at his absolute droughtiest, having the only new thing of Rayman be so child focused would have hurt the brand massively. I mean, take a 10-year-old child. They would have been -2 when Rayman Legends came out. The appeal for Rayman just is not there for young children, and I have to say I'm kind of like the prime example of a Rayman fan now. You know, mid-20s, anywhere from like 20 to 35 I would imagine is like the main Rayman fan range. Now, I'm not saying you have to suddenly make Rayman snort cocaine off a cow's booty cheeks, although that does help. I just think doing a very, very, very child-focused, not just child-friendly, child-targeted TV show, no one's going to watch it. Ubisoft is going to go, oh, this was a failure, no one cares about Rayman, and cancel further plans. Now, obviously, I would have given it a try. It's Rayman, you got to give it a look, but realistically, I'm not tuning in every week for Paw Patrol, so why would I tune in every week for Rayman and the Moldies? The difference is, though, Paw Patrol's fanbase is made up of 5-year-olds. Rayman's is made up of 25-year-olds. It would have hurt the brand. There would have been no appeal. It was completely hitting the wrong target audience. Another issue we run into is the Moldies. Remember when I mentioned the Rabbids a little while back? I feel like the Moldies could do a very similar thing. Now you see, the Rabbids became their own thing, right? You had a trilogy of Rayman Raving Rabbids games where Rayman was kind of in the center. You know, the idea was he has to defeat the Rabbids because they're shit. But very quickly, in the second Rayman Raving Rabbids game, really, that narrative disappeared because the Rabbids were the appeal. People were there for the Rabbids. By TV Party, Rayman wasn't even in it, he was in cutscenes. And then they dropped the Rayman name and it was just Rabbids. They took over. Rayman was one part, he was 1/20th of the characters in the Rabbids games. So naturally, he's the one that gets kicked out while the Rabbids kind of take over. It makes sense. They ended up having their own TV show, for God's sake. Rabbids Invasion. You know what? It was quite good. I remember watching it when I was like 12 probably. Like I was a teenager, and I remember getting a couple of chuckles out of it. I've always liked the Rabbids. I think they get a bad rap. Rabbids Invasion, it takes the Rabbids, you know, these clonable mascots that are basically all the same, but ever so slightly different. You know, they have variations to sell toys. You've got the costumes, you've got the slight different appearances. They cause havoc for a 12-minute segment to people, and it's funny, and you can rinse and repeat. And like I say, clonable mascots. Rayman wouldn't have fit in Rayman and the Moldies, right? Like the Rabbids, I could totally see the Moldies being the main appeal. You know, they're all goofy, they've all got different personalities. You've got the mossy one, you've got the fiery one, whatever. I don't know what they were supposed to look like. They would be the center. They would be the merch that's selling. They would be on the t-shirts. They would be the plushes that you buy. They would be the ones that end up being the main focus of the show while Rayman fades into insignificance. Again, what I'm saying is, even if Rayman and the Moldies was successful and people engaged with it, Rayman wouldn't be the thing they're engaging with, and again, it wouldn't help the Rayman brand even slightly. Another thing is that Rayman is an actual character, whereas the Moldies and the Rabbids, they're not. They are clonable nothingness, essentially. Rayman needs a narrative. Like Rayman the animated show was at least telling a proper narrative, and for whatever reason that never went anywhere. But the Rabbids, they can have a 12-minute segment of them causing havoc. There's no place for Rayman there. The Moldies can have these little adventures in their fantasy land, but there's no place for Rayman there unless you're telling a proper story. You know, Rayman and Glowbox, they go on an adventure in Rayman 3. That's the point, it's a story. Rayman has characteristics about him, a personality. This just doesn't work in a 12-minute, disposable, probably with very little dialogue, if any dialogue, children's show. Think Captain Laserhawk. While Rayman wasn't the main character in that show by any stretch of the imagination, what little input he did have left a massive, massive, massive impact on everybody. I mean, it kind of has to. But he fits so much better in a show like that. Love the show or hate the show, I don't care. You have to admit, he fit better than he would have done in Rabbids Invasion. And I'm telling you, Rayman and the Moldies would have been like Rabbids Invasion more than Captain Laserhawk. Another thing on top of this is take a look at the concept art again. Look at him. fuck him. I'm glad that was never released onto this. Who did that? I'm sure the artists responsible for him were told to design him like this. So it's not the artist. I respect the artists. Whoever said make Rayman look like this, fuck him. Actually, just fuck him. It's horrible. Anyway, the only real information we had from this were leaks, concept arts, little murmurs here and there, you know, pictures taken across hallways during conferences. It was all very prototype, early stage development kind of thing. You know, there was never a trailer. I don't even think there was a proper logo. It was very much just a proof of concept that never made it off the ground, and that's fine. While I do wish Rayman would come back sooner rather than later, I think he needs to come back in a proper way. And I just think Rayman and the Moldies was not that proper way. Rayman and the Moldies would have hurt the show more than... Rayman and the Moldies would have hurt the show rather than revived it. Rayman and the Moldies would have hurt the brand rather than revived it. But new Rayman game that at the Paris Games Week, Ubisoft have once again said, yeah, we're making a new Rayman game, stay tuned. So, you know, he's coming back. Maybe we'll get a proper TV show one day soon with him, like an actual narrative one. Revive Rayman the animated series, that'd be pretty cool. But until then, Rayman is coming back. What more could you possibly want? I want him to hurry up and come back. Anyway, that's all I got. Bye.